There is a huge issue that is starting to develop regarding silver, and here's a hint as to where the focus of this problem is. I'll explain as we explore. It's really all about the money, right? That's for sure. And money makes the world go round, but what really is money? That is really the ultimate question here, because price is so important and so talked about with regards to silver that we forget that silver in and of itself is money. Although it is not active money, it does not circulate as currency, it does have the properties of money, and store of value being one of the most fundamental over the long course of time. That's how we should view silver. Although remember, that is related to cost. In other words, what you pay for whenever you get your silver and what you pay for whenever you go to sell your silver. And we've seen that market turn upside down with this latest rally. In fact, with the latest dip that we saw over the previous 2 trading sessions or so, there has been a rush to buy silver, which is good news. Indeed it is. And dealers like Summit Metals, they've got silver in stock, but they are probably being affected by this because they're so busy. I've seen other dealer websites say that be patient with us because we're taking in a lot of orders, unprecedented demand we're starting to see yet again. Of course, what happens with that? Well, the prices go up. I'm going to explain exactly what that is. But so when you're shopping around, check out Summit Metals and see what they have in stock and experience their great customer service and their fast shipping for yourself. And it's about buying and selling. You're seeing equal parts of it happen with this latest move to the upside and a little bit of a pullback as well, too. In fact, somebody had mentioned that they had sold pretty much all of their stack. And, we may cover some of that in a different video, but nonetheless, I believe in a holding physical for the long term. But there's also a word of warning I want to give to you about what's going on with these rising premiums. That's what we're starting to see again. We've been here before. This happened back during the original silver squeeze movement, as a lot of people were buying, trying to essentially altogether sort of corner the physical bullion market. When you buy a bullion such as 999 silver, you're starting to see the premiums rise even as the prices fall. Therefore, you're not saving a whole lot whenever you go to buy your silver. And that's because they're realizing, we don't have as much silver in stock, and so therefore they raise their prices. That's part of the natural market. And we saw that happen during the original silver squeeze movement in 2021 and 2022. And it's starting to creep back up again after a time when there wasn't quite as much buying. There was more selling when coin shops and dealers had a glut of silver, especially constitutional silver. So therefore, that a lot of that silver is not being sent out to refineries because they're refusing it. And so now they have a different problem starting to emerge, and that problem centers around what is available or not. There seems to be still a lot of available constitutional silver that is being sold and still very close to spot price. And so that is something that is really something that we should probably be focusing on, right? Constitutional silver. It is not being affected by these higher premiums right now. I think that's what we should do. Buy this stuff right now. We have to be agile as silver stackers, and maybe a little bit less of this stuff if the premiums are continuing to go up on them. And high demand coins like the American Silver Eagle are probably going to be hit the hardest. In other words, you're going to probably be paying higher premiums for these. And there has been, that coin has not been affected quite as much during this rise in price, where other silver has been sent off to refineries or maybe even refused by some local coin shops. See, not all silver is the same. There's not, and that is quite apparent as I've learned this hard lesson watching these markets and just talking with certain dealers out there. And so therefore, we have to be agile with the market. If you have a whole lot of constitutional silver and you needed to sell a whole lot of it during this present bull run, and you couldn't because they weren't taking anymore, well, that silver is completely useless to you. So therefore, I believe in diversifying your stacking strategy and your ability to be able to sell or not. In other words, I think we should never sell out of desperation or out of a need. Now, there are exceptions to that, obviously. Any emergency can come up for sure where we need cash. That is the most liquid thing out there, is cold, hard cash. So I believe in having some of that set aside for moments like emergencies that may come along the way, unexpected expenses, so that you can essentially soften the blow to your silver stack. That's what it's about. But we're seeing these premiums rise, and I want to caution you before you buy any silver from any company, including the channel sponsor, is to do your research, look around, find out if it's a good time to buy or not. Sooner or later, this is going to work itself out, and you can pick and choose what type of silver to buy based off the premiums. And so, you got to just be careful out there and be agile with the markets. I don't think you should buy if the premiums keep rising on certain silver products until the market normalizes, just like it did in 2021 and 2022. But we're seeing sort of a shift. Think about it like a pendulum, and it's swinging back the other way now, and people are getting in. They're panic buying. And, and I believe it's a good idea to buy, but you have to think about the premiums you're paying. Is it really worth it? Sometimes there's a time to buy, sometimes there's a time not to buy. And I think if you're going to buy, look at constitutional silver. I think that's a good way to do it, or see if you can find lower premium privately issued silver bullion out there, or find some of the better deals you can on Eagles and other sovereign coins. That's the kind of stuff that is the most liquid, by the way, is sovereign minted coins, even more so than bars. We're learning that as well, too, but it's good to have a variety, because sooner or later the market is going to shift yet again, and premiums are going to come back down, and the prices are probably going to continue to stabilize and probably go up somewhat in the coming years. I say that it's pretty much a safe bet. I think that we're through with $20 silver at this point, although some will disagree with me on that. But still, I think once everything normalizes and gets back to a state of being where the economy, the geopolitical concerns stabilize, I think probably we're going to see silver's prices at a new higher support than we've seen in the previous bull runs for silver. But remember, the silver price topping out at $54.50 an ounce recently, that is still much lower than it was the last time we saw a bull run on silver reach back to almost $50 an ounce, and that was in 2011. Adjusted for inflation, that number would be $53 per ounce. $73 per ounce. And we're nowhere near that yet. I still think there's a lot of room for silver to move, and most analysts out there believe we're going to see it go up into next year, and I'm one of those that feels we're going to see silver prices recapture $50 an ounce again. We did see a little bit of a recent uptick in the price of silver just today as I record this video, but I want to warn you that it's good to buy silver, but it's also good to watch the market conditions and buy according to your level of understanding, and watch these premiums. And again, I do not blame the dealers for raising their premiums on product, because they may be running low because people are buying, and so they have to raise their premiums. So, there may be a situation where it may be worth it to pay a little higher premium for silver at this point, especially during these dips, because of what's going on in the world, and there's a potential that silver prices could recapture the high that we saw recently. It is quite possible. So you have to weigh that for yourself. But I just caution you to be careful out there and not to buy out of fear. In fact, I read a reading from an email from Summit Metals. They say, don't buy out of fear, buy out of wisdom. And that is so important to do. That's right. You want to make sure that you're wise as to what's going on in the markets, and your level of understanding of premiums and what you may or may not get back whenever you go to sell your precious metal. But holding is the best avenue for being able to preserve your wealth over the long course of time. And so that is just something that I want to make you aware of. as we now enter into, I think, a new phase in the precious metal markets, and with silver in particular, with that market dynamic shifting. It's good news to see people starting to buy silver again, even at these prices, because I think there's still some potential there for it to go up. But nonetheless, we got to be careful with how we approach it and with our level of understanding. And the reason why I want to be careful and cautious with you about what's going on is because I don't want to see any stackers get jaded down the road if the prices were to fall back into the low 40s or high 30s and premiums just drop on silver because people give up and they're like, oh, I've lost $10, $12 an ounce of silver. I want to warn you that is quite a possibility, because silver is there's more to silver than just its price. Whether it's rising up to $60 an ounce or it goes back down to $30 an ounce, it matters not, because it is wealth outside of the system in the long run. And you only lose if you go to sell. And I don't think you should ever sell at a loss unless the circumstance warrants it and under an emergency, which is, again, why I encourage you to hold dollars so that you don't have to sell, so you're not forced to sell your silver. So I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.